I thought, well, I've got some things to say, and why don't I say them and see what happens? It's like, that's an excellent way to live. Why don't I say the things that I think and see what happens?
All right, welcome, friends, family, fellow human beings, whoever and wherever you are. My name is Michael Allen, and this is my first ever video for my first ever YouTube channel, Ideologos. Welcome you all on this journey of truth, justice, and
my real objection is that I don't think political correctness works.
Why should your right to freedom of speech trump a trans person's right not to be offended?
Because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. You know, like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable.
Headshot.
So you haven't sat there and I'm just trying to work that out. I mean,
Gotcha.
you have got me. I'm trying to work that through in my head. Yeah, it took a while.
It did, yeah.
It took a while.
You know, we're living in a time of intense ideological flux, and to work out where we're all going, we need to be able to talk about things freely, and we need to be able to make mistakes. And I think being able to make mistakes is a sign of a healthy environment. And it's a sign of, you know, it's part of the creative process. The warriors who want to shut down debate, who want to shut down free speech, and argue that giving a platform for exploring dangerous ideas is equivalent to endorsing them, they're basically saying that you can't make a mistake. And that's really scary, because the only way we move forward is to experiment, test new ideas, see what works, and pick the best ones out of the experimentation process and move forward that way.
And this is my experimentation process, where I try to say what I think and see what happens. For the record, I am not a philosopher, a scholar, an intellectual. I am basically just a guy who loves words. All the way back to in the beginning was the word.
And human beings are in principle made in the image of that logos. And that's why we can speak things into being. And we do. And when you speak truth, then you speak paradise into being, and when you speak falsely, you speak hell into being.
But what I was going to say is that Jordan Peterson's really deep point is, if I understand it, so Jordan, if you're out there, please correct me, is only archetype of the kind found in religion is sufficiently rich and deep to explain why humans behave the way they do. There's no scientific theory that's good enough. There's no purely logical, there's no purely philosophical tradition. So as of the moment, we are stuck with deep cultural archetype. Maybe Shakespeare would be the only thing comparable to the religious canons.
Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him, Horatio. A fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy.
As I am man, my state is desperate for my master's love. As I am woman, now alas the day, what thriftless sighs will poor Olivia breathe?
We are such stuff as dreams are made on. And our little life is rounded with a sleep.
I will have poetry in my life. And adventure. And love. Love above all.
Like Valentine and Sylvia?
No, not the artful postures of love, but love that overthrows life. Unbiddable, ungovernable, like a riot in the heart, and nothing to be done, come ruin or rapture. Love as there has never been in a play. I will have love.
There's this tremendous idea that's at the bottom of Western culture that's taken the human race millennia and perhaps an endless amount of time before then, an eternal amount of time before then to formulate. And the idea is that our consciousness, and that's the center of us, the soul, whatever that happens to be, partakes in the process by which creation comes into being. And we do that through the logos, which is our capacity to think and to utter words and to engage in dialogue, but more importantly, to do that truthfully. And that to the degree that we're able to do that truthfully, we bring paradise into being rather than hell. And it seems to me that that's as close to objective reality, although it's not precisely objective, it's more than objective reality. It's a kind of meta-reality. It's the most profound truth that you'll ever encounter.
The warriors who want to shut down debate, who want to shut down free speech.
I believe one of the greatest human failings is to prefer to be right than to be effective.
If I personally were committed to enforcing decolonization, science as a whole is a product of Western modernity, and the whole thing should be scratched off. The whole thing should be scratched off. The whole thing should be scratched off.
Now, hypothetically, it's an attitude of skepticism, irony towards rejection of grand narratives, ideologies, and universalism, criticizes objective notions of reason, human nature, social progress, absolute truth, and objective reality. It's predicated on the idea that the reason that you categorize, especially, that the reason that you categorize is to marginalize. You categorize to marginalize to obtain power. Power is pretty much all there is. There's other elements of postmodernism. One of them is that human nature is merely a social construct. See, the reason for that, as far as I'm concerned, and this is a postmodern critique as well, I'm going to move the center to the margin and the margin to the centers. Why would you think that human nature is only a social construct? Well, here's why. It's because that means you could construct it any way you want to. That was a very common idea among the communists. You know, that's why Mao wanted to wipe out Chinese history. That's why the Red Guard went around in China and tried to destroy everything, every element of China's history prior to approximately 1960.
As a group of Taliban leaders watch from a nearby hillside, the statues are reduced to rubble and the detonation fills the valley with a cloud of dust. All that remains today of the Bamiyan Buddhas are vacant niches in the mountainside with an outline of where the towering figures once stood.
Is the light okay in here? I just read my email. We have our first win. The dog park paper has been accepted. They don't know. We're about to tell them. Gotta read you something. Dear Dr. Helen Wilson, I have now closely considered the revisions of your manuscript, Dog Park, and will recommend its publication in Gender, Place, and Culture. You have done very good work to address the issues your reviewers raised and have clarified your arguments. Thank you for your contribution to Gender, Place, and Culture, and I hope to be seeing your manuscript in print. Yours truly, PhD, Managing Editor, Gender, Place, and Culture. We have an accepted paper in the #1 feminist geography journal. Since approximately June of 2017, I, along with two other concerned academics, Peter Boghossian and Helen Pluckrose, have been writing intentionally broken academic papers and submitting them to highly respected journals in fields that study gender,
race, sexuality, and similar topics. We did this to expose a political corruption that's taken hold of the university. By this point, several of these papers have been accepted in highly respected journals, and one that claims that dog-humping incidents can be taken as evidence of rape culture has been officially honored as excellent scholarship. I'm not going to lie to you, we had a lot of fun with this project.
The reviewers are worried that we didn't respect the dog's privacy.
That's the concern.
We respected the channel.
But don't let that lead you to believe that we're not addressing a serious problem. If you have a few minutes, I'll try to explain. To be clear up front, we think studying topics like gender, race, and sexuality is worthwhile, and getting it right is extremely important. The problem is how these topics are being studied right now. A culture has developed in which only certain conclusions are allowed, like those that make whiteness and masculinity problematic. The fields we're concerned about put social grievances ahead of objective truth. So as a simple summary, we call the problem grievance studies.
Grievance studies! What a wonderful opportunity to move humanity into a positive direction. So I am an unapologetic fanboy of Jordan Peterson's work, especially in the realm of mythology. I'm also a big fan of the intellectual dark web, a diverse group of people who agree to disagree on many topics, but who are still willing to have civil conversations nonetheless. Imagine that. Okay, so if there is a point to all this, it's that I've decided to come out from under the comfortable rock of misery that I've been living under for far too long. To brave the YouTube world and to bear some responsibility by voicing my incredible opinion. To add my unique voice and perspective to the world, to tell the truth and see what happens. If you've gotten this far, you know by now that I'm not a fan of the histrionic, high-volume, derisive, rhetorical, misanthropic, religious-like, postmodern-driven ideology that sees only power structures, and thus the oppressors and the oppressed people everywhere. Racism, sexism, consumerism, colonialism, and every other ism. And it's not that I believe those things don't exist, they certainly do, and we need to be vigilant about them. And as the old saying goes, we all find whatever it is we're looking for. And I think that statement is true enough. There's a difference between vigilance and malevolence, which seeks only to destroy. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. Peace and genuine love to you all, and as always, more will be revealed.